It's like Randy's Video and Scream 3.
It's exactly like Randy's Video and Scream 3.
Welcome to Gold, Diamonds, and Death, a James Bond podcast. I am your 00 host, Jonathan Watkins. I am a writer for all things under the Cinemasins brand name and a co-host of the Behind the Sins podcast. Joining me each and every week for this endeavor, he is the co-founder of Cinemasins, co-host of the weekly podcast Recotopia, and he loves telling metaphorical tales involving the cuckoo bird.
I do.
And he's also one of my good friends, Mr. Chris Atkinson. How are you today, sir?
Doing all right. There's no doubt, by the way, that Blofeld's influence trickled down to Silva when it comes to entering a room. We're
going to talk about. Yeah, this movie's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this Spectre, aka Retcon. The Bond movie,
yes.
Retcon. So we're going to talk about Spectre. I can't believe we only have 2 films to go. We have this, and then we've got No Time to Die. Unless, of course, like I said, you're listening to this like 20 years, and there's 5 or 6 more Bond films that we talk about after this.
Can't wait to get through the Harry Styles era and the
Yeah. I don't mind that, actually. That could be fun. But there's still even, we're in 2023 and there's rumors about, while we're recording, I assume we'll still be in 2023 when you hear this, but there's always rumors popping up, and damn well they haven't talked to any, or maybe they have, but I don't know. I don't trust anything. I still think it's funny people think Idris Elba's going to do it, even though they said we're going younger.
Yeah.
They still think like the 50-plus-year-old Idris Elba.
Right.
Idris Elba would have been awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
Would have been amazing.
Would have been great.
And if they do like a Dark Knight Returns Bond movie, maybe throw him, you could bring him in.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to talk about Spectre, and let's go ahead and get into it. Our first segment is something we like to call Eon Flux.
This is a journey.
I'm gonna make a movie!
We have to go back, Kate.
Wow, how did you know all that stuff?
I did my research.
I don't understand any of this.
What the fuck is going on?
We are going to scour through the history of Eon Productions, give you all the highs and lows that went into the makings of these films. Spectre, we're only about 8 years removed from this. Not even quite 8 years as we're recording. It was the 24th film of the official Bond franchise. It premiered at the Royal Albert Hall on October 26, 2015. It was given a wide release the exact same day in the UK. I don't know how that works, but that's what it said in the notes. It opened in the US and Canada on November 6th. The budget of this one is huge. Biggest budget for a Bond film. And I don't even know if it's what they've even reported. A lot of people say it's more than this, but the budget was from 250 to 300 million.
Yeah.
On cars alone, they spent something like 48 million.
Really?
Just on cars. The budget's crazy. Like the stuff they're going, there's a lot more locations than they normally shoot. Craig and Mendez get a pay bump, all that kind of stuff. Its budget estimated between 250 and 300 million. It grossed 880 million worldwide, which is not bad by any means, but it's a decent amount less than what Skyfall did.
Yep.
Is the 6th highest grossing film if you go by worldwide gross that year. It is the second highest grossing Bond film after Skyfall, and still is. Without I don't know if that's including inflation. I don't know. We've talked about why we don't really consider that anyways, unless it's just something fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But made 200.1 million in the US and Canada. It was the 10th highest grossing film in the US in 2015. It finished right between Cinderella and Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Finished right under it.
I'm kind of surprised that Cinderella isn't higher, by the way, because that one I feel like that was super huge.
Well, yeah, it was 9th. But here's why. Because that year was Star Wars The Force Awakens, Jurassic World, and Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah, that would knock your ranking down, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then also Inside Out, one of the last original Pixar films to be released in theaters, until this year when we get Elemental or whatever. Furious 7 the first Minions spinoff.
Weird though. I still thought Cinderella did better than those last couple of movies you talked about there. But
yeah, and actually the Martian was 8th. The Martian finished a little
Martian
above it.
was a tremendous hit. Yeah.
And then the last Hunger Games film.
What I'm thinking of is because ever since Disney started doing these, and here's the Disney remake discussion hour on a Bond podcast. But I know what I'm thinking of now. I'm thinking of Beauty and the Beast because that's the one.
that was huge.
Slammed, and Cinderella was like a kind of like okay, it was decent. So
yeah, I think Cinderella did probably like kind of like what Aladdin did. But yeah, no, Lion King and what you just said,
Beauty and the Beast.
So both of those were insane. So Sam Mendes initially said he just didn't want to come back. He had already done a Bond film. He didn't want to do another one. The only person I found that they even talked to, Nicholas Winding Refn, has said that he turned it down.
Right. What an interesting potential director that would have been. Like, I mean, every time I hear something like that, I realize you have to realize it's not going to be a Nicholas Winding Refn film. It's just going to be a Bond movie with slight shades of that director.
Which I'm going to assume is why he turned it down. Because he knew he could.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what he had done that got him like in the door. Like, I mean, I guess they were just Drive. Somebody must have liked Drive or something.
Well, like Valhalla Rising might have been one that.
Oh yeah, that's
Drive
true.
For sure. Drive may have been the one, but Valhalla Rising's another one that he was.
Well, that's true because Valhalla Rising probably had action too, right? So they probably.
I remember it being very slow. It had Mads Mikkelsen in it too, so that's right. Another reason why I was thinking maybe that's one of the movies that ran across their thing, but. Anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I kind of want to see that movie. I kind of want him to do one now because I'm just like, what would that be?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like Ari Aster or the witch director.
Eggers.
Yeah, Eggers. So that was the only one. But Mendes, they kind of approached him with the idea. They were going. I don't know if he read an official script, but he read something about the main story. And that intrigued him. He said in an interview he was really excited that like they were getting Blofeld and Spectre and all that stuff back, and that they could build that from the ground up. They could do something different with it. Whether or not you like what's different with it is a whole other thing, but they definitely did something different with it. He also became the first director to do 2 Bond films in a row since John Glenn, who of course did all 5 of the 1980s Bond films. Dennis Gassner, he's back as the film's production designer. Roger Deakins is not back. We got, I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to go with Hoyt van Hoytema.
Yeah, which, that's a thing. It's so crazy. This guy isn't a household name, but he has done a lot of the Christopher Nolan movies. He's doing the upcoming Oppenheimer. He did Nope, which had a lot of like raves about how they did cinematography in that movie.
Yep.
He's only been nominated 1 time for Dunkirk, but man, is the cinematography amazing in this movie.
Well, and one I don't think people talk about as much, but Her. I mean, the cinematography, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, that's a really good looking movie. The Fighter, I don't remember much about The Fighter, but was he the one that, because they created like a new camera, right, or something for Nope, the way they did the day to night,
right? They did something like, I can't remember the whole thing, but they did there was something groundbreaking about Nope with the day for night filming. So
and it does, it looks outstanding. Daniel Kleinman is back to do the title design, which is, God, it's so weird. Tentacle porn.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, and he even said, in a thing I read with him, he said like the octopus was supposed to be more of like you weren't going to see much of it. It was just not, I don't know if he meant implied, but like I guess it wasn't supposed to, like we weren't supposed to see the whole octopus. And he said once they went that route, he said it definitely got a little out of hand, and he said it came off a little icky, but he said they were happy with it, so they just rolled with it. Daniel Craig gets a co-producer credit on this. This is the first Bond film that he got to do that. I don't know if any of the other actors have. I've never seen that pop up in notes, so I don't know. But Craig was really excited about that. Apparently, he would tell everybody, I got a co-producer credit. He said, I was happy to see my name somewhere other than, starring or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is Spectre, which we haven't heard the word. I don't know if they even said the term Spectre. We haven't had Blofeld. since Diamonds Are Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Unless in the official franchise, they had Blofeld in Never Say Never Again, which was that was something else. That was a different studio.
Yeah.
But he hasn't been anything since Diamonds Are Forever, unless you count that. Like, I guess technically he's in For Your Eyes Only, but they don't really show him. They just show the back of somebody.
That's one of those cheeky reference deals.
Exactly. Yeah. So what happened was Kevin McClory, who was the one that owned the rights to the Thunderbolt and all those characters and stuff in it, he passed away in 2006, actually, when they were making when they released Casino Royale. And so basically they were able to get with his estate, and I'm sure those were like, yeah, we'll sell it back to you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they also, Eon has a sister company called Danjag, I guess that's how you pronounce it, and they were the main ones that were involved in that thing. I don't really know how all this works because I don't know a lot about the way studios do stuff, but I do know with this film, and with Skyfall, MGM needed help because of financial issues, so they got involved with Sony. And then Sony made this deal where they would put up half the budget, but then somehow Eon convinced them to only take 25%. So after Skyfall, like Eon and Danjag made like well over $100 million each, but then Sony made like $35 million. You know,
yeah.
And I can't remember who the president or whatever was at that time, but she got fired not too long after this, and a lot of people think her making that deal is a big reason. And especially they noticed it on this one because this one didn't make as much money. So on this one, they only got like next to nothing on the net profit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that seems like a weird thing. But like I said, I don't have like financial records in front of me, so I don't know how much of that to actually talk about because I don't want to come off sounding stupid.
Yeah.
But that was the gist of it. So once they got the rights back, Purvis and Wade were, I think, kind of the ones. Neil Purvis and Robert Wade come in. They don't really. I didn't really get an impression they had a lot to do with this screenplay, because John Logan comes back and writes the initial first draft. But Purvis and Wade did. They were kind of the ones that said, let's just make Quantum like a division of Spectre, because they've already mentioned this evil organization called Quantum.
Yeah.
So now that's going to be a division of Spectre. And they also decided to no longer have Spectre be an anagram. It was just, that's the name. It's just Spectre. That's why it's lowercase after the S.
Yeah.
And then they also decided to make Raul Silva, he was not part of Quantum. At least they didn't say that in Skyfall. But they decided to go back and make it that he was part of this organization.
Yeah, which
is
makes
so weird. No
fucking sense. Yep. Anyway.
No. Yeah. We will talk about that. I have that in my notes to talk about. We talk about the movie. So John Logan's back. He writes the first drafts or whatever. He claims it was his idea to bring in Blofeld, but I don't know if that's true. But that's what he says. Eon and Sony did not like his script. But the core idea, the main idea was kept. So there's this playwright named Jez Butterworth, which is a great fucking name, by the way.
Yeah.
He actually did some polishing work on Skyfall, but he wasn't credited, so I didn't have that information. But on this one, he really came in and like did a lot of, he took that idea that Logan had, and then he kind of went on his own with it. So he had a lot to do with this, the script that ended up coming out. There was some really weird versions of the script, though. Blofeld at one point was an African warlord. In one script, Elm is the agent or the mole inside MI6, and Ray Fiennes was kind of like, I'm not doing the movie if you do that.
Yeah.
That's basically what he said.
Right.
And it is. That would be so stupid. Like, that would be so dumb.
Yeah, although it sounds like because he decided he wasn't going to be the mole, that's why they decided this silly subplot with Andrew Scott in it.
Oh yeah.
And so now the movie's like kind of worse in a way because they have to add this in there instead of just having somebody. I mean, I get it. You don't want to have somebody that's either. I mean, he's not. That's the thing, though. He's not beloved at this point. He's not Judi Dench.
Well, that's true. That's true. I guess it's just. No, you're right. That could have worked actually because I mean, Judi Dench was them, and then she's gone. Although she is in this, Judi Dench is in this, so she's technically 8 appearances.
And it also makes no sense that she's in this, but yeah. Anyway.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's like Randy's video in Scream 3.
It's exactly like Randy's video in Scream 3.
Jesus Christ. Well, and you could even say that I'm just now thinking about this, but the way they do Blofeld, like how he's involved with Bond, I mean, he could be the killer in Scream 3 as well. It's basically the same thing.
Could be, yeah.
I don't think Scott Foley had like an inner network.
But
of serial killers or anything.
is exactly the plot, right? It's almost exactly the plot.
You heard it here first. Spectre ripped off Scream 3.
It sure did. That's why there was that
man.
Nev Campbell cameo that was in this movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and when they decided they couldn't do Elm, they were going to do Tanner. So that was another,
Which would have been fine.
That could have worked. Yeah, that could have absolutely worked. Or even still have and like you said, the Scott character, which I'll get into more when we talk about the cast. But so what they ended up settling on is that Blofeld is basically like Bond's like half brother.
Come on. I mean, now that if there's anything that like ripped off anything, it's this movie ripping off Austin Powers Goldmember. That's what it ripped off.
Well, and it also kind of reminded me, there's a great book out there called Slash of the Titans, because if anybody doesn't know this, the Freddy vs. Jason, they were trying to make a Freddy vs. Jason movie like in the 80s. So like you get this book is about all the scripts and ideas that were brought about between like 1987 and like 2002 or whatever, when they finally made one. And there's a few of them where like Freddy was made like a camp counselor at Camp Crystal Lake. And there's even like one, I think, where maybe he like sexually molested Jason or something. It's so weird.
My God.
But that's kind of what this reminded me of. It's just like, it's God. It's like, I feel like that was somebody in a writer's room was just like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if Blofeld was his half brother? And then somebody's like, wait, that's a good idea.
Yeah, boy, that's like really dramatic. Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and even though this isn't based on any books or anything, there is a small connection. The Hans Oberhauser name, that was a minor character in the short story.
Is it Hans or is it Franz?
Octopussy. I thought it was Hans. Let me double check.
I thought he had an F first name.
Yeah, I might have. Well, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry. Hans is the father of... Yeah, so Blofeld is Franz. That is correct.
Okay.
But the character's name, Hans Oberhauser, is the one that was taken from Octopussy.
Oh, okay. So they went and did a Hans and Franz, didn't they? They did a Hans and Franz.
Yeah, they did. That's another thing they stole.
Yeah.
Yeah, SNL should have sued, too. So for the cast, we got Daniel Craig. He's back for his fourth outing, and he gets to be co-producer. I guess I should mention that since that really excited him, and he's probably going to listen to this.
Yep.
Ray Fiennes is back as Elm. Naomi Harris is back as Moneypenny. Ben Whishaw is back as Q. They're all making their second appearances. And then Rory Kinnear's back for his third appearance as Tanner. Because I think he was in Quantum. He was. Christoph Waltz plays Blofeld. And like I said, this is the first appearance of the character since Diamonds Are Forever. I honestly didn't see like a bunch of stuff where they were like, we were going to cast this person. So I feel like, and I wouldn't be surprised if they picture, because Christoph Waltz like feels like that's who should be playing Blofeld in 2016.
Yeah.
Or 2015, sorry. Leah Seydoux, is that right? Do you think
it's
that's right?
Leah Seydoux.
Leah Seydoux.
Who at this time, Leia Seydoux. I mean, there's, you know what? There's probably a million ways to pronounce this name, but I actually looked at a interview with her Variety where she was doing Blue is the Warmest Color, and she says,
yeah, that was the movie she was known for at this point.
Yeah, she says, I am Leia Seydoux, or Seydoux, something like that, but it's somewhere around there. Anyway.
She's also she can be very funny, as we found out in the French Dispatch. So she's cool. But yeah, Blue is the Warmest Color. That was kind of I don't know if it's a huge indie hit or anything, but it definitely, she got attention from it.
Yeah.
And because who's in that with her? Isn't it? Is that the one?
It's Adele. It's Adele Exarchopoulos, whatever. I can't remember his name. Adele Exarchopoulos. And then there's there may be somebody else in there that I can't remember.
So yeah, she's in that, and Blue is the Warmest Color. We got Dave Bautista, who I kind of forgot about, but then once I saw him, I was like, oh yeah. Dave Bautista, if anybody's listening to this doesn't know, he's Guardians of the Galaxy is probably his most known thing. He also had a really I've always thought he was, the first time I really thought, man, I think this guy's got something, was in that Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
He's only in one scene, but he's like really good.
Really good in it, yeah. The Guardians of the Galaxy came out in August of this year, right? So he has done Guardians of the Galaxy at this point, and then Spectre comes out a few months later.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wait, was Guardians of the Galaxy 2015 also?
I think so.
I'm going to double check that, because I didn't have that in the top 10, so I would think that would have been in the top 10.
Maybe it was a different year. 2014. So he's
okay.
He's known at this point. 2014.
Outside of wrestling. I mean, that would be the first place I guess people might know him from. But, he was, and I like that he's finally getting some recognition. I felt like there at the beginning, like a lot of people weren't really giving him that much credit. We're actually like saying, because like if you had to tell me now, like if I preferred him or Dwayne Johnson, I think I'd say him pretty easily.
Yeah.
I just find he takes more, but he also doesn't probably have the power of Dwayne Johnson and isn't having his own movies made for him and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I mean, it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he plays a character named Mr. Hinks. He is an assassin for Spectre, very much in like the Odd Job and Jaws mold. I mean, he doesn't really have a special he doesn't have a gimmick, but he's very much in that mold. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah, he has one word at the end. Yeah.
And Broccoli and Wilson, they thought he wasn't going to take the role. They really wanted him, but they didn't think he would take the role because he didn't get to talk. But that actually appealed to him because he loved Bond and he loved characters like Oddjob and Jaws, and he thought that'd be really cool if he could play somebody that might be compared to them. And he doesn't really need to say anything. I mean, Dave Bautista looks menacing as fuck. So
yep.
Andrew Scott, as we've already mentioned a little bit, he plays Max Denby or Denbig or something, but they call him C.
Denby, I think. I think they just call him Denby, Max Denby. It's spelled
Denby,
very weird, but I think it's Denby. Yeah.
But then Bond just calls him C, and then M starts calling him C as well.
Which I believe is supposed to be a 4-letter word that will not rehash here.
Probably.
I think that's why he says C, and there's even a cheeky moment where Ray Fiennes says, "Now we know what C stands for." Careless.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, okay, so you're just being cheeky about what the C stands for here.
Also, by the way, the scene where there's like so many scenes in film history where somebody has removed the bullets from the gun but have left the gun there, I guess so the person can be like embarrassed. Because I'm always like, why wouldn't you just take the gun?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know, exactly. Just like he's going through the drawer. Oh, no gun there. Yeah. Amazing. I can't do anything now.
Oh man! And then that one day you forget to take the one out of the chamber or something, and it's like, well, shit, that didn't work out well.
Mm-hmm.
But he plays Max Denby. Andrew Scott, probably most known, most people. Well, Fleabag, I would say now. I have not watched Fleabag, but I know that was a that's what I've heard. I've got to watch it. But there was a meme about him. He was like Sexy Pope or something like that, or Hot Pope. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I know him from Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch series. He played Moriarty.
Yeah. That was big.
Episodes.
And
he's a great actor.
He's also the guy on the other end of the line in the Tom Hardy.
Oh yeah, starts with an L.
Locke.
Right.
He's in Locke.
Locke.
He's the other guy on the end of the line who Locke has entrusted to do the pour the next day, and you can hear him. He's the worried guy on the other end of the line who's getting drunker as the night goes on. Yes, but he's been in a ton of stuff. You've seen. I mean, we're not even scratching the surface of how many Andrew Scott things that there are out there. So,
and he's got such a unique look too. So he's like very recognizable and all that stuff. But he's great. And I mean, this just happens to be. There's this whole subplot in this movie about. He plays I can't remember what his official title is, but he's with MI5, I think, and they're trying to merge with MI6, and then they're trying to there's this whole subplot about we're taking away the 00 program.
Yeah,
it feels like we're and those I don't know. We'll talk about them when we review the movie, but anyways, that's what his involvement is, and then of course he ends up being bad.
Yeah.
We've got Monica Bellucci as Lucia Sciarra, however they were saying that last name. Bond kills a guy at the beginning of the movie who's this other assassin, and this is her husband, and then he meets her at the funeral. Bellucci, when she filmed this, she was 50, which I still remember was a huge topic of conversation. It's so dumb that it was. But if you need this, she's the oldest, quote unquote Bond girl. And she had tried out for Paris Carver, which I think we talked about when we talked about Tomorrow Never Dies. I think I mentioned her, but that was the role that went to Terry Hatcher. I think, and like nothing against Terry Hatcher, those are just two very different actors, though. I think it's weird. Like, let's have Monica Bellucci and Terry Hatcher audition. I don't know. That seems odd to me.
Yeah.
But that was when Monica Bellucci, she had done a lot of foreign stuff, and I think was trying to get into Hollywood, and then she got to do like the Matrix sequels and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think it matters that she's 50. Didn't
even run across my head while I was watching it.
No, she looks great. And I like her. I think she's a good actress that doesn't really get used well in a lot of things, at least in the States. She was also really excited to do the film, though, because obviously she didn't have a chance to do it in Tomorrow Never Dies, but also she's just a fan of the franchise. She said she was really excited to be a Bond girl. Now, I mean, she could have just been saying that, but she did say that in an interview, so I thought I'd mention it. And we already mentioned we do get a little bit of Dame Judi Dench. She's in a kill somebody.
I'm sitting here going.
Go to a funeral.
I'm sitting here going. Oh, we can. I mean, I know we're talking about this later, but I'm sitting there just going.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
I'm just sitting there going. If this guy was as important as she thought as he was, why was this a death video? Why wasn't this just why didn't you just tell him about it? It
doesn't make any sense.
I don't get it. It's just a way. We all know why, right? It's so that she has one more moment in a Bond movie, and they're just trying to do well by her. Get it? I totally get it. But the fact that she said this is a key video. This is like one. I understand she doesn't trust anybody in the organization, or as they said in Quantum of Solace. They've got people everywhere, which they kind of forget about for a second, and then they come back to this here. She doesn't trust anybody, but just tell Bond about it. You don't need to leave a video for this. You can tell him about that while you're getting shot at in Skyfall at the end of the movie. So
exactly, and the reason it's weird too is because Skyfall had nothing to do with what happened in Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale. Like, they don't even mention the Quantum, and Silva is clearly not involved in this organization.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants revenge.
It's his own thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyways, but then when they got Spectre and all that stuff back, they just felt like they had to do it. So they. I don't think anyone could have won trying to write this.
This is one of those things where they could have just easily just not connect. I understand. This is the first Bond. This is the first Bond series that has decided to be like true sequels on every count, and then and this movie sets up stuff about the next movie and so on and so forth. But this is something they could have left alone. They could have left the connections between the other villains and Spectre.
Just make Blofeld a new villain.
Yeah,
just make him a villain.
Right?
Who cares?
I wouldn't have been. I would have been fine with Mr. White still being the guy, like being connected.
Oh, that's true.
Being connected, but all these other guys, they definitely were not connected. I don't know. Lashif, I guess, could have been. I mean, there's hints in Casino Royale that there's a big organization that profits off 9/11, and maybe that's what they're talking about. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe. No, you're good. But you mentioned Mr. White, so that was my last one. Jesper Christensen comes back and plays actually a pretty decent scene too. But they bring him back. And I mean, you can tell it's like a real desperate thing where it's like, we're going to try really hard to make, because they want him to be the connective, tissue. And it's like, we're going to try really hard to make him like a thing. But like, I got to be honest, I'm pretty sure when I watched Spectre the first time, I'd probably forgot that was even somebody that had been in previous films.
Yeah. By this point, let's see. So when does Quantum of Solace came out in 2008?
7 years after.
Yeah, it came out in 2008. So that was the last time we saw him. Yeah. And so like him going, I'm pretty sure I forgot all about him too.
But but he's in a scene, and then the Leia Sadu, her character is his daughter. So anyways, they shot a lot of this obviously at Pinewood again, and around London. They went to Mexico City though. They went to Morocco. They went to Austria. They went to Rome. So these location shoots played a lot into why this budget was so much higher. So they have this. I will give the movie this. They have this interesting scene where it's a car chase that involves also a plane. they had a few different ways that they did that. There was a life-size plane that they had the detachable wings on, which I think they've kind of done some version of that in another Bond film. I can't remember which one it was.
They've rigged
Timothy
so
Dalton?
many of these. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And then they had some plane fuselages. They were built like on top of snowmobiles and stuff like that, so they could get it around. Some shot from nitrogen cannons.
Mm-hmm.
They also decided to do that scene with the plane because they had snow and they didn't want to just do. They didn't want to just have bobsleds or skis because that had been done so much in the Bond films prior to this.
Yeah.
And so they just wanted to come up with something different. And, it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Craig suffered some more injuries, though. He messed up his knee pretty bad. At one point, he had to leave for a couple weeks and actually have surgery done on his knee. And also, when he was in that fight with Bautista, they had a meniscus tear.
Oh, Jesus.
And I think I remember hearing about that when it happened, because I think Bautista felt kind of bad about something. I can't remember. I couldn't find the story again, but I just felt like there was something in there. So they had some issues in Rome because they were filming around a lot of historic buildings and stuff, and there were like these organizations that were getting really irritated and they were really scared. So they had to go in. This is another thing that raised the budget. They had to go in and build like all these protective bases around things. Like they had to build them around stairs because they were having cars go on the stairs of these buildings and stuff. So they had to keep doing stuff like that. So that also made the budget even higher. There's a new Aston Martin. It's the DB10. It was a model that was built specifically for the film. There's only 10 of them, reportedly, that were ever even built. They also had these remote driving pods built, and they added those to the top of the vehicle. So that's how like you're able to see like Craig and Bautista like behind the wheel and everything, which I thought was cool. Here it is. The movie also set a record for smashing up cars, and reportedly that was $48 million of the budget was just cars alone.
And these cars are state-of-the-art, amazing
cars.
Yeah.
And they just wreck them.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the Day of the Dead parade, which is the opening sequence, that was actually something, well, at least of that caliber, it was made up. Like that wasn't really something that happens in Mexico when they celebrate the Day of the Dead, at least not to that extent. However, because it was so popular, like it was one of those things. It was such a spectacle that they actually had their own kind of version of that. In 2016. They haven't done it again since, but they did something like
You're
that.
You're talking about the parade, right? They don't do.
Yeah,
they,
the parade.
They celebrated the day. They just didn't ever have a parade until
not like that, not that big.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just it wasn't that extravagant, And but then they actually did do that like the following year because everybody really liked that. In fact, Gassner said that it was one of his favorite designs to ever work on. He said all the Mexican like the extras and stuff. He said they loved it because they said. That day is so important to their culture and they love like, that being a highlight of the movie.
Yeah. This is the only, I feel like real insightful extra that I saw on the Spectre disc.
Yeah.
There was no behind the scenes, of course. There was one about the Day of the Dead sequence. And the thing that they talk about in this is how, of course, this is an uncut shot. This is I don't think they did any hidden cuts in this.
So I can it required there were 6 cameras.
Okay.
So there was some stuff done.
Some
6
hidden
shots. It was
cuts.
6 shots. And they did some work in post-production. And some of it was even they had the interiors were at Pinewood, and so that all got merged in. So yeah, there is some single shot stuff in there.
So they did have some hidden cuts in this. Okay, so the thing about they talked about that I thought was interesting was like they had 1,500 extras for this Day of the Dead.
It was insane.
And they show the setup of all the makeup they have for all these people who are getting all the like paint on their faces and everything like that, and the costumes and the props and whatever. But these people would sit in however long of makeup to get their faces on, and then like a red light would pop up on their because this is up a whole bunch of mirrors, a bunch of vanities that are shot. So a red light would pop up and they would be done, and then another person would come in and sit down, and that's how they sort of did it. There's just so much that went in to this, and also weirdly I feel like they did this scene dirty in a way, and we can get into that later, but
interesting.
I mean The opening sequence is really cool. I just think that they could have done something else with it anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, and it was I can't remember the exact number. I didn't write it down, but it was like thousands upon thousands of flowers. Like there were so many flowers that it was a really extensive thing that they did that, like in a MCU movie or something, they would just have a bunch of CG people or something. In fact, this was another thing. The helicopters were flying so low because there's a helicopter chase also, or not chase, but like there's a fight in a helicopter that's doing a bunch of aerials and stuff. And it was going so low, they couldn't do it right there because they couldn't do it with the people there. So they actually did that at an airport in Mexico that hadn't opened yet. But the way they did it was, I thought that because the other option was they didn't want to do a CG helicopter because they thought that would look dumb.
Yeah.
So they took the footage of all the people and stuff on the streets and just kind of matted it in while they were shooting the helicopter. And I didn't notice anything.
No, I didn't notice either. They had a guy who had flown around in some Red Bull helicopter, like some YouTuber, basically. I don't know if he was a YouTuber, but he was on YouTube, and that's where they found him. Did the helicopter stunts, and yeah, they had to shoot it in several different places. In fact, they shot in another city at one point too.
Yeah, they did
for this sequence. But you can see the helicopter going over that plaza in Mexico City, and there's just a handful of people down in the plaza, and I think they're all stunt people. And then like you were talking about, they have to mat in the other people, the partygoers.
And there was even some stuff where it was a stunt person when they superimposed Daniel Craig's face on it. There was a lot of shots of that, and I thought that was interesting because I never noticed that. I just assumed it was him.
Yeah.
In fact, they said a lot of the stuntmen and there were motion capture doubles in the helicopter. The fighting in the helicopter was stuntmen. It wasn't them, which that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty impressive. This film got in the Guinness Book of World Records for an explosion that was filmed in Morocco.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was the largest film stunt explosion in cinematic history. 8,140 liters of kerosene.
Jesus.
And 24 charges of high explosives. All right, so we got Thomas Newman back as the composer. Newman actually worked on the score during the film. Like he didn't wait till they were done. So and it's something like there's like 100. I think it's like 100 minutes of music or something crazy like that was when they were finished. Radiohead was initially hired to do the song, and what they did was actually they took a song they recorded and produced in the 90s called Man of War, but they never released it. So they sent that in, and they turned it down because they said they wouldn't be able to get nominated for the Academy Award because even though they hadn't released it, it had been officially produced.
Yeah.
And you can't get original, so that's just funny. It's like if the song's good, what does it fucking matter?
Yeah, but, it was a similar situation. Was it in I think Moulin Rouge where they did "Come What May" couldn't get nominated because he'd written it for Romeo and Juliet, and and so it's like okay, so but nobody's ever heard it before, so
I know it's crazy. I mean, both sides of that are crazy. Like, I don't know why, if they didn't actually release the song, well, what did it matter? But it's something about the fact that they recorded it already.
Yeah, it's so not original now.
So they did let him write another song. They did let him write a song, and they turned it in, but nobody liked it, apparently, or not enough. And I couldn't find what that song was, so I don't think it was ever used anywhere else by Radiohead. So then they bring Sam Smith in. I feel like Sam Smith this is kind of like he's just becoming a thing at this point.
Yeah.
Like maybe he had been around longer than I can imagine. I'm thinking.
No, I think this is probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he comes in and he records writings on the wall. There's no "the" before it. It's the first Bond song to reach #1 on the UK single charts. We also mentioned this last week. It became the second one to win an Academy Award, two in a row. Have won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. It was the fifth to be nominated. It also won the Golden Globe for the same category.
One other thing about the Sam Smith thing is that apparently he there's in the video blog section of this disc, he talks about how he sent them a letter, and apparently it was very cocky and said like, I can get like do he Sam Smith himself says it was very cocky, that he like, you know, like he was the guy for the job and everything, so he was very
funny.
surprised that he ended up getting the song anyway, even after all of that. So there you go.
Good for him. That's hilarious. So reception for this, it got, I didn't think the reviews were as bad as I thought they were, but it's not great. I mean, they got like a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. And almost all the reviews said it was a disappointment following Skyfall.
Yeah.
But that it still had its charms. Daniel Craig, not surprisingly, got a lot of recognition. The set pieces got a lot of recognition. People really like Dave Bautista. He got a lot of positive notes. I didn't really see much about Alea, so I didn't see like anything bad or necessarily good written about her. But it did say a lot of it just felt like the negative was kind of focused on that. A lot of it just felt bland, following, you know, what everybody considered to be a great Bond film with Skyfall. And people really couldn't stand all the trying to make the plot work with all the previous films and whatnot. That's really all I have on the behind the scenes on this one. There wasn't a whole lot, even in the book and stuff I read. There wasn't a ton talked about. So was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Nope. Like I said, the only thing that really they talked about that much was the Day of the Dead parade and the shot.
Yeah.
And that was a 20-minute thing on the disc, and that was interesting, but that's about it.
I'll have to see if that's on my disc, because I would actually like to watch that. That sounds interesting. I'm really, I don't know. I like I'm fascinated by, I don't know, the parade just looked really interesting.
Yeah,
so, I don't know.
definitely.
All right, so now we're going to talk about what we thought of this film. I'm sure you got a little bit of that from what we were talking about during the last segment, but we'll go into a little more detail in a thing we like to call a review to a kill.
I've got you in my sights.
Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
There's no need to shout. I'm not shouting.
Why don't you stop your whining and get on with it? I've heard this shit before.
We're going to give you our thoughts on whatever film we are discussing this week, and we are discussing Spectre. A cryptic message from James Bond's past sends him on a trail to uncover the existence of a sinister organization named Spectre. With a new threat dawning, Bond learns the terrible truth about the author of all of his pain in his most recent missions. I can't believe they put that author of all of his pain.
Yeah.
I hated that line so much.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything cryptic about the message. Like Judi Dench flat out said, go kill this guy and go to his funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, talk about this movie that you loved a lot, Chris.
I mean, what you noted in the reviews. I mean, there's enough positive about this movie for sure. I mean, the opening,
for sure.
The opening sequence of this movie is great. I really do do appreciate that they did this parade. Everything looks stunning on this. All the makeup and the costumes and the props, all that looks amazing. The one shot, even though it's got some hidden cuts here and there, great. A great sort of like high wire act in many places. And I can't detract from the helicopter stunts that are being done later in this, but if you've got this tremendous visual of all these people on the ground, it feels like your action scene should happen in the parade and not above it.
True.
And that's why I was a little bit disappointed. And I think it really struck me while I was watching the making of, because they're sitting there talking about how, the people of Mexico and people of Mexico City just loved that they were getting a part of a Bond movie, and that, that it was going to show off their city and everything. And when you're the James Bond franchise, there's not much you haven't done at this point. So, have you ever had an action scene take place through a parade? Or a lot of people? Yes, you have. Have you ever had? But you've had numerous helicopter encounters. There are so many of them. There's no reason to do this. You got such an awesome setup. I feel like you should stay on the ground. And if you really wanted to do everybody proud, just stay on the ground and just let the scene take place with people in masks and Bond trying to chase after somebody that's really difficult to find with mask on and everything. Then, I don't like all the retconning in this for sure. They even once they get I thought this was one of the silliest parts of the movie is he gets the ring from Sciarra or Shiara, whatever how they spell. I can't remember how they pronounced it, but they get that Spectre ring from him, and Q is able to stick the ring on a laptop that is able to read all the DNA that has ever been on that ring, I guess. And like it just so happens to be Lashif and Green and it's got all
Silva.
and Silva. It's got all the villains on it. How is this ring getting passed to every single one of these guys? And how is it not getting cleaned? And like and so I just thought that was like dumb. Like an interesting way to get your plot moving, obviously, but I just fundamentally disagreed with a ring having that much information on it. And then I'm trying to think of what else about this. Just kind of sticking Blofeld in there and making him a half brother, and that he was so mad that his dad paid more attention to him for a couple of years. It feels like this is something they could have set up earlier, and I know that they can't use Spectre in the earlier movies. But if they were in any way thinking that they were going to have some big villain who, if they were going to try to do even if they didn't think they were going to get Spectre back in, and they were just going to stay with Quantum, and they knew they wanted to have a big bad like Blofeld behind it. They could have set this up a little better. I don't feel any emotions whatsoever when I find out that Blofeld is his half brother at all. They're talking about Franz, it's the last name? The is it Oberholzer or whatever?
Yeah. It's like Oberhauser. It's
Oberhauser. When they mention this name, it's meaningless. It just doesn't mean anything. No emotional impact whatsoever. We're like, who the fuck is that guy? And then kind of like how Star Trek Into Darkness does. We know it's Blofeld, but there's no. Waltz comes in like, I'm Stavro Blofeld, and you're supposed to like jizz because it's Blofeld and everything.
Yeah, that's for the audience. That's not for the characters in the movie because Bond doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, well, he does. It's just that it's not.
Oh, well, that's true. I guess that's yeah.
He does know who it is. It's just that it's not a big deal, and just the fact that all of this has apparently been orchestrated by Blofeld the whole time is just complete nonsense. Like you alluded to with the Silva thing in Skyfall, that's a guy who's driven by revenge on M. That's what he wanted to do in Skyfall. He wanted revenge on M, and Bond was just kind of collateral damage in that whole thing. Or just he wasn't even really part of Silva's plan, really. I don't think. Even though he had set up all that nonsense through the subway or whatever, it's like. But like his whole thing was to get to M. That was the big issue.
I think he knew who Bond was, and I think he figured that she would send him after him. But he just happened to be the guy that was sent after him. I don't think Silva. If it had been another agent, it would have been the same
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like trying to make it out that Blofeld is the guy behind all of this is just, it's like stepping on your movies. It's kind of like when you talk about stepping on your jokes when you have a certain reality that you've set with one joke, and then on the next joke you completely fuck up that reality. That's stepping on the joke, and that's what you're doing here. You're stepping on your past plot points and everything. And I've said it before, and I think I said it in Quantum of Solace. There is a 0% chance that the MI6 doesn't know anything about Spectre. And what really underlines this is that once they start talking about L'Americain and all of this other stuff in front of Léa Seydoux, she's just like, Spectre, you're talking about Spectre. And I'm like, how many people's family, how many people's friends you cannot keep this a secret anywhere. How many people have you arrested that have had something to do with Spectre? They've just somehow found a way to just stay silent about it for years and years. Yeah. And like, none of this, it's like, no, just, I think you're fine knowing about Spectre. You just don't know where Blofeld is. And that's fine if you want to do it that way. But you can't do this thing where nobody knew who Spectre was or who were, like, sure, you may have some agents in there that you don't know are working for them, but to never have heard of them is insane.
But he also, I mean, just to go on that point, he doesn't even try to hide himself, though. Like, he shows up at that meeting. There's like hundreds of people. There's like 100 people in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he was really true and trying to stay behind, he would have somebody go in place of him. You know, you would know. It'd be like in the older films where he's just the guy on the computer or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, he's in the room that like two people come in, like his number 1 and number 2 come in and talk to him, and then they go deal with everybody else. I mean, he's not remotely trying to hide himself at all. So I don't. Yeah, like you said, they should know about him. They should know about Spectre, or they're fucking terrible at their job.
Yeah, exactly. And it lead, you know, that when he goes to that meeting, and you know, it's Blofeld is in shadow the whole time until he exposes his face to talk to Bond. And like, I understand Blofeld's need to show that it's him that's going to get him. Yeah, but that's a clear case of you having Bond at your fingertips, and you want to kill him, but you just let him leave, basically. You know, I mean, he tried to shoot him, I guess, but you couldn't just have a couple of people behind him once the big reveal happened. You had this asshole Russian guy who, like, was a bouncer guy or whatever behind, like, who shows up.
Ciao, Mickey Mouse.
But you know that dude isn't gonna take care of Bond. So what the hell? This whole ending too, where right after the big explosion at the Blofeld headquarters, at the Spectre headquarters or whatever, somehow Blofeld in 24 hours, I guess, I think it's a very short amount of time.
It's not long.
Is able to set up like this big, like, I don't know, Joker-esque thing in the old MI6 building.
I'm so glad you said that. So glad you said Joker. That's what this is.
Yeah, this whole thing, like in the MI6, blown out MI6 building, where he's got arrows pointing to where to go, and he's got pictures of everybody posted up on the walls. Like, this has been his plan the whole time, even though just in the scene previous, he was like poking him with this needle, hoping that he would forget everybody he knows before he died. And then in 24 hours, he set up this MI6 thing with, you know, not only does he have Madeline in, like, kidnapped and, like, tied up where a bomb's going to go off, but he's also set up this big, like, weird thing with also the bulletproof glass. I always think it's funny that Bond thinks that he's going to be that easy to kill. He just goes over and starts shooting, and he doesn't, like, you know, try to kind of like look at the area a little bit before starting to blow up, like shoot up the glass or whatever. He knows. I know that he doesn't know there's glass there, but it's just weird that he does all that. I also hate the fact that once Blofeld gets in the helicopter, they have to cut away to him, and he's like, "Goodbye, James Bond." There's plenty of like decent things in this. This is not the worst movie in the world.
No, not at all.
It's just one of those where, like, you're just asking way too much of not only the, like, casual viewer, but of Bond fans themselves when you make this plot the way you do. And I know it's a real bummer you couldn't get Spectre earlier, but you can't cram all that stuff you just did in the 3 movies into this one and expect that to, like, feel good, you know? So anyway, that's sort of what I feel about this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm never really bored in this. Like, it moves okay, even though it's probably too long, but like, again, I'm not super bored.
It's like they're trying to set a record for length in these Bond movies.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's probably not that much of a difference, but I would watch this over Quantum of Solace, I think, if I had to watch one of them again.
Oh, 100%. Quantum of Solace is definitely the worst of the group.
and probably one of the least interesting, really, Bond movies in general. But it's okay. I think the main problem I have with it is it just ends so poorly. Like that lasts like 30 or 40 minutes. Like I just don't give a shit about any of it. And I'm not, like you said, I'm not intrigued. I'm not in any kind of suspense. I'm not concerned. Like I know Bond's gonna live. I know Leia's gonna live. I mean, I'm not, or what? God, I keep saying Leia. What is her character's name? Madeline Swan. Yeah, and I love that name too. I forgot it. I just the stuff we touched on a little bit, but the whole subplot where like Elm is like trying, I don't know, Elm is like dealing with like internal issues within the company. Like that's like there's like 30 minutes of this movie is given to that. Now I do kind of, once they find, or Bond finds out, I guess, which I think it's hilarious that Blofeld just tells him at sea, because like until you've got that guy dead, I don't know why you would even say that, but but I guess he's so boastful, he just doesn't think anything can stop him. But I do like the stuff where Elm gets to like bring the hammer down on. Other than the gun thing is stupid, but the fact that scene's kind of fun where he gets to bring the hammer down on C. Although then he kind of murders him. But
kind of sort. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know if I can catch you. Nah, I don't want to catch you. Yeah.
It's like Batman and Joker at the end of the '89 film.
Yeah.
I wrote down this feels more like a Joker layer than a Batman villain. This feels like a reaction to Marvel. Like this feels like a reaction to comic book movies. Is what this movie feels like.
Yeah.
Like it's like they're trying to do that MCU thing where they're tying everything together. And there's a lot of problems with that within the MCU, but I feel like the MCU at least starts at a point, maps out what they're going to do after that. If they have to change some stuff on the fly, they do. But like this is like, you're already like 3 movies into whatever this is. And your last film is basically saying, not saying forget about Quantum, but it's also kind of doing its own thing. So then you've got to figure out a way to tie that movie in. And that's what this movie is just all about. Like, it just feels like they're just trying to work to build this like universe or whatever they're trying to fucking do. And nothing in it feels very organic. I think that's the biggest problem I have with it. Like, it's just, I don't even know what the story is they're trying to tell. Like, I can't figure, I mean, it's like they're just coming up with stuff and it's like, okay, and the Blofeld being like his half brother or whatever is just so, and he killed the parents. It's just so dumb.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. What if Bond didn't become a secret agent? Like, what if Bond became like an electrician or something? Like, what the fuck would he have done then? Because he makes it seem like every plan is revolved around Bond.
Yeah.
And see, that's the other thing. Like, all the past Bond stuff, like, there are people that don't like him specifically, but like, he's just an agent that gets put on a job. It's not like he's not Batman, He's not. And even though this movie kind of wants to make it seem like he is, like, I feel like it's weird when Q even mentions that there's a 009, because it doesn't even feel like there's other agents. It's just him. There's just no cohesiveness to this at all. And it's just all about trying to like go backwards into this world building. And
I feel like you have,
it's not very good.
I feel like you have a perfectly good story set up for everything you have here with Andrew Scott. And like I said, I don't really like the fact that they had to put him, and I like Andrew Scott, but I don't like the fact that they had to put this character in, apparently because nobody wanted to be a mole inside MI6. but they have a perfectly good thing here where he's trying to get all these countries to vote for this massive surveillance that's going to go across all 9 countries. Like, everybody knows everything. There's cameras everywhere. It's George Orwell, all that type of stuff. And they had the one country, they had South Africa, vote against it. It feels like you could have had a whole thing where there were like multiple countries against such surveillance, and one by one they become victims of terrorism, and they don't want to. that you wouldn't want to make it too obvious because you don't want to make it just the countries that are a part of this summit or whatever. You might want to throw another couple of terrorist actions here and there that we don't like. Maybe they're connected in a different way or whatever. But I feel like that's a perfectly good setup for a Bond movie.
Yeah.
To get that thing going, and you can still put in Christoph Waltz as Blofeld and all that, but you don't have to put in all the, I don't know, the personal connections, which is what this whole series has been, is how does all this affect Bond personally? And, we talked about how Bond was this Daniel Craig Bond has been influenced by the Bourne movies, but I think as it gets into this decade, it might be the Mission Impossible movies, the latter day.
Oh yeah, that too.
The latter day Mission Impossible movies, because there's a lot of like rogue, like off book type of stuff going on. There's people who want to get rid of the program. Cruise is doing all his stuff on his own. And everything. So it feels like these Bonds are very much influenced by the latter-day Mission Impossible movies. But
I can even remember, like, Rogue Nation came out that summer, I think, right? Yeah, so I saw Rogue Nation before I saw Spectre. So, like, I saw Rogue Nation, like, end of the summer or whatever. It was awesome. And then I go watch Spectre, and I'm just like, I mean, Mission Impossible did this way better. It's like, just as far as, like, spy movies, know? And it's like... And so maybe that is, and like I said, I think also they were definitely trying to do like the MCU thing, or I guess the DCU too, or whatever that's supposed to be fucking called.
Yeah.
I don't remember at that point how many like DC movies had been released, if any. But
I'm not sure.
But regardless, like you said, that whole thing in the Batman definitely, like Dark Knight had been released, and you definitely had a lot of like Blofeld was like a knockoff Joker at times.
Yeah, well, that's clearly that's I think that was always clearly a part of these movies, was that Mendes so admired the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy that a lot of the stuff gets sort of like translated.
Yeah, it's not like it's not even close to being the worst Bond movie. Not even close, but it's probably like the one that like matters the least. Like I get nothing out of this movie. And it also kind of not ruins, but it kind of gives you like a bit of a, I don't know, nasty taste in your mouth about the couple that we've really liked, Casino Royale and Skyfall, because it's like when you watch those, knowing Spectre exists, you're like, this is what happens after these.
Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of one of those. It's kind of like when you watch like sequels and they kill off like people, and you're just like watching the first one again. You're like, well, I know these people die later, so I don't care anymore.
And
I don't know.
They clearly wanted to get another like true love interest for him in this, where because she walks in much like Vesper Lynd does in a stunning dress, and she's like, stop staring at me, and he's like, you shouldn't look like that then, or something like that.
She's given nothing to do, by the way. Nothing.
No. But I have no clue. I mean, look, she's beautiful. I just don't know what that it is about her that's so goddamn special that he falls in love with her like Vesper.
I don't either.
Like Vesper, it made sense.
That. Yeah.
There's a lot of things they went through in Casino Royale, and this one it's kind of like she falls in love with him and he with her like very quickly.
Oh, in that last scene where he's quitting and they're just riding off into the sunset, like that makes any like why?
Yeah,
like
until he doesn't trust her. Until he doesn't trust her in the beginning of the next movie.
Did she just quit her job? Like, is she not going to be a counselor anymore?
Exactly. He's like, he's not going to be handing out those shakes were at the bar or whatever that thing is getting.
I love that. I did like that set though. I thought that setting was really interesting. Well, that leads to the helicopter and the plane and the car chase.
That was the other thing, is when Bond goes to talk to Mr. White. How sloppy is he in these things, man? Like, there's cameras in there. He doesn't notice.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't notice there are cameras.
He plays that back, right? Blofeld plays that back, right?
Yeah, Blofeld plays the suicide back, which again, it just feels like we have too many of these scenes in movies these days. So, I've noticed it more and more and more. It seems like just an easy cop out for the plot, for them to do that. And
why does Bond hand him the gun? I have no idea why.
Yeah, he's like, this is my trust. This is how you're supposed to trust me. That because I'll let you kill me if I don't understand.
Or he was saying he was going to let him, because he was dying, so
Yeah.
I don't know if he was just going to let him put himself out of it. I don't know
Right.
if that was his kind gesture, but it's like, Mr. White doesn't have a gun? Maybe he
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how Bond knew that.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, if that's the thing.
Right.
No, I know what you're saying, but like for me, and like that's definitely done way too much. Like, you know, like the menu was one where it was just like,
Yeah.
really?
Another
Like,
Ray Fiennes. By the way,
That's
just
true.
as a-
Yeah, it's Ray Fiennes' fault. Let's put that out
Yeah.
there.
Just as an aside, I watched Grand Budapest Hotel before watching this movie. And,
wow.
And so I got to see Ray Fiennes, Léa Seydoux, and Matthew
that's right.
Amalric from Quantum, all in Grand Budapest. Before watching this, of course, Matthew Amalric's long dead in the Bond series, but
Yeah.
seeing Ray Fiennes in those back to back, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, those are two very, very different characters, but they're both also very Ray Fiennes kind of stuff.
Yes.
I mean, and even the Avengers, which is not good. The Ray Fiennes Avengers, not the Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Like his, Steed or whatever that character's name is. Like I feel like he pulled
Steed.
some of that into his Elm. Also in this Kingsman movie, he pulled a lot of that into that. But I like Ray Fiennes a lot. I like and I like that they're giving him more stuff to do. I just thought that subplot was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if they just made Tanner. I don't know that I could believe that Tanner could get away with that, but like,
Yeah, I know.
that
but
still would have been.
I
It
mean,
would have added more weight to the film. For sure.
in classic Bond, that would have been totally fine but now they got to throw in an entirely new character that we don't have any history with, and to find out that he's a bad guy means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you might like the actor, but other than that, you have no. And they don't do anything with the character. He's like a generic, bureaucrat coming in and trying to make things different.
Doesn't
that's like
doesn't really do anything that hinders Bond in any way either. The whole idea about, and I guess if you really wanted to like go deep and say that, like, well, he doesn't want to do anything because Blofeld wants to have the confrontation with him or whatever. Anyway, I don't care about that much. He doesn't factor too much into this movie.
No.
And yeah, so it would have been nice if he's using that surveillance in some way that, tips Blofeld off where Bond is at all times and all these different things. Something that actually matters. And this one, it doesn't seem to. There's a scene in this where Bond is looking at the television, seeing a terrorist attack in South Africa, which is what turns the vote back to unanimous on doing all this surveillance and everything. Which, by the way, that vote has been taken, so I don't know if it. It sounds like.
Is that still happening?
Is that still going on? I don't know. That vote is 9-0 now after South Africa got the terrorist attack and whatever. So I don't know. Maybe they dialed it back. I can't remember if they say anything about it in No Time to Die.
I don't remember. I mean, we see Blofeld again, but I don't know about that.
But there's a point where he's looking at the screen, and I'm like, oh, Bond is kind of figuring this out, isn't he? That they've been telling him about this vote somehow, that it was 8-1, and now all of a sudden, coincidence, South Africa gets a terrorist attack, and he's, you would think that he's putting 2 to 2 together, but he's just observing the screen, and it doesn't come back to play at all in the movie whatsoever.
No. Well,
you would think that he'd see that and be like, hey, by the way, he's probably part of this organization. He does. Wait a minute. How do they find out? They do find out that he's a part of. They do find out that.
Oh, see, no, they find out because
Bond does
Bond
tell.
Bond
asks Blofeld if he's a part of it, and Blofeld says yes, he is. But that doesn't really factor into anything in London that's going on in London.
No, and they're trying, and like they somehow the 00 program gets ended because C went and talked to somebody above Elm's head or whatever. But I don't know how that even factors in. Do you think Bond's going to give a shit? I mean, he's not even on orders currently what he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not supposed to be where he's at. He's supposed to be grounded. I think all that does is it gets Ray Fiennes to side with Bond for a while because he can't trust what's going on with C and whatever. So that's the only thing I think that does.
They've also set up a couple of things in the next Bond movie that one would be awesome if it had. I mean, we're gonna get to No Time to Die, but I don't like anything about the villain in that movie. Leia Seydoux talks about the man who came to kill her mom.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah,
and so that sets up the opening scene of No Time to Die. Also, they talk about that. What's that blood that Q puts that that tracking blood into Bond, which becomes a factor in the next movie as well.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, one of the all-time doesn't make sense things of all time. Like I said, all time of all time, but it's really that bad.
Yeah, exactly. It deserves that.
It deserves 2 all times, one before, one after. It's some sort of what do they call those things? It's it's a micro. What is it? It's whatever they used in that movie.
Is it a micro? Not a microbot, is that right?
It's like that. It's kind of like that microbot, or God damn it, I'm gonna look this up real quick. Shit.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, now that we're having to come up with it, I can't remember. It's gonna be obvious whenever you find it, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, because I think it's the same tech that's in what's that cartoon? See, now I can't even think of the cartoon where that. It's called Smart Blood. And they're using these
because don't they do that in Bloodshot too? Isn't that the whole thing? Like in Bloodshot,
yeah, I think they do.
Nanobots.
Nanobots. There we go. Microprocessors. Yeah. So they put Q puts the nanobots, the micro blood into Bond, which is going to become a big factor in the next movie, and they're not going to explain it very well whatsoever.
No.
They've established a couple of things in here that they're unfortunately going to carry over into the next movie, which is I think 5 hours long. Anyway, a lot of things I don't like, a lot of things that I do like on the surface, and that's the way it comes down on this movie.
Yeah, it's super mediocre, but it also has like I said, just the way they tell the story is just probably worse than just about any Bond film. Even though the film itself is the best, because there's high production value. It's pretty to look at. Actors are fine, even though some of them are
looking at
some of them are given nothing to do.
Yeah, we're not looking at this like The Man with a Golden Gun and thinking it looks like a Columbo episode or something like that.
Man, Columbo probably looks better than that movie.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway.
God, now I want Christopher Lloyd as a kid. Christopher Lloyd.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee. I want Christopher Lee. Christopher Lloyd would work too, but I want Christopher Lee as a Columbo villain.
No, I know that'd be amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I have much else to say. Oh, the only one thing I did want to mention this because you were bringing up the cameras. I thought it was interesting though. I don't understand why Blofeld is so wanting this to be like a worldwide thing, because it looks like he's already got cameras in every single building in the world based on whatever's going on in that layer. And I'm like, why do you even need people to know about this? You've done so well to keep everything hidden.
Yeah,
you control it all. So I don't even know what the purpose of the Andrew Scott, unless Andrew Scott character decided he wanted to do that, and Blofeld's like, yeah, that's fine, because he even says something like, Bond's like, what does he get out of this? And Blofeld's like, nothing. He's just like me, and he wants to change things or whatever. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But it's like, I just don't know why you've done a pretty good job of keeping everything secret to where the government doesn't even know you exist. But then you're going to have this whole thing with surveillance, because then all of a sudden you're going to be under surveillance. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget that if this whole thing was to get Bond on his trail so that he could kill Bond later and tell him, I hate you for being my half-brother and all this other stuff, it takes a death video from M to even get on the trail of that thing. So
because he's not even looking for them.
So it's
in
not
Skyfall.
even like he's given a good trail to him in the first place. But now that there's a trail, he's like, oh goody, now we get to really do this thing that I've always wanted to do. I don't
And then
know.
he quits again, which he did at the end of Quantum of Solace, I guess, because at the beginning of Skyfall, nobody knows where. Oh, I guess it's at. No, he fakes it. He after he almost dies, I guess he just runs off. But he essentially quits in Skyfall, and now he's quitting again. Like, that's not. I mean, I don't even know what the point is. It's like he never. Like, I don't think. I'm trying to think outside of Casino Royale. I don't think he's actually done anything that's actually been assigned to him over the last 3 movies. I think
Not really.
he's just been off the radar for the last 3 movies, doing whatever the hell he wants to do.
Yeah.
And I even got to the point where Q's like getting mad at him, and I'm like, motherfucker, like, you didn't have to help him.
Right.
You chose to help him.
Yeah.
You knew what he was gonna do.
Which, by the way, I mean, he's the Simon Pegg of this. If we're talking about the Mission Impossible movies, Simon Pegg, there's similar, very similar things that happen.
Absolutely.
With Simon Pegg in these movies too, because Alec Baldwin is always going to Simon Pegg going, where the fuck is Ethan Hunt? And he's like, I don't know where he is. And then like he knows where he is, but like you know, it's the same exact thing. There was a point in time where I started getting a lot of these movies confused because there was a lot of like even scenes that would happen, like you know, Mission Impossible. Is it? Yeah, Rogue Nation is the one that has the opera scene in it.
I believe so, yes.
I think that's right.
I think so.
It has the opera scene in it, and then Bond has the opera scene in Quantum of Solace. Is it Quantum of Solace?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Quantum of Solace. So it's and I know that those movies are Rogue Nation came out after Quantum of Solace, but it's just like you start thinking back on all these movies and they all the different things that happen. It's like it starts really blending in. Things, even locations that they go to are the same a lot of times. I think they so what they both go to Vienna maybe in Rogue Nation and this one in the same year. Mission
that I can't answer.
Rogue
I mean, that
they
sounds
go to
familiar.
one of the same locales even, I think, in this year where both Rogue Nation and Spectre came out. But anyway.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a mix of like that and Marvel and just all the stuff that was going on at that time.
Yeah,
and
so much.
They're just trying to create like their own like, you know, universe or world building or whatever it is. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they fail at it pretty badly. And then as far as I remember in No Time to Die, I mean, there's definitely I feel like the stuff that's left over in No Time to Die is stuff they just feel like they have to deal with. It's not like Blofeld being in No Time to Die, if I remember, which we'll talk about this, I guess, No Time to Die. But like Blofeld being in it just feels like, well, we can't not like we have to like broach that subject. I guess they felt like they had to.
You went
and
through
it's like
all
you really
this
don't.
You went through all this trouble to set up Blofeld, only to have him as Hannibal Lecter in the next movie.
He gets killed too, doesn't he? I think.
I don't remember.
Maybe he doesn't.
I don't know.
I don't either. We'll find out that next week. So let's do our rankings. So for the rankings, we're not going to rank this film in 4 different categories because we're not doing the gadgets anymore. Our scale will be based on something that Bond holds near and dear to his heart. As long as they are shaken and not stirred, that would be martinis. So for each category, we will rank from 1 to 5 martinis, 5 being the best damn liquid that has ever passed your lips, 1 being the well liquor you had to settle for or were too drunk to care that night. So our first one is just kind of our, you know, the story and all that fun stuff, which we've trashed quite a bit over the last 30 minutes. So what do you think about that?
The story's got to be like a 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about this. It's got everything like a Bond fan probably in theory should like.
Mm-hmm.
But the story itself is not good. It's not told very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a 2.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2. I mean, I might even... No, its story's a 2. I can't even go to 2.5. It's a 2. It is like the perfect like 2-star. I mean, if you were to look that up in the dictionary, it'd be Spectre screenplay.
Yeah.
What about Craig? How did you think he did in this one?
I mean, Craig is always going to be good no matter what. I don't think there's any issue with... It doesn't look like he's tired of the role or anything. He's pretty much...
Which is weird because he says, like, every time he finishes one of these, he says, like, I don't want to go back and do this ever again. Like, he made a comment after this one that he would rather kill himself than do another Bond film. And then like a month later, hey, we're doing No Time to Die.
Yeah, that may be true that he felt like so exhausted after doing.
I think that's what it is,
or whatever. But like, I think he's also probably the best actor there's ever been in a Bond.
I think so.
So like, I think his professionalism is always going to just shine through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's his usual 4 to 5 self here. 4. I'll give it a 4 because this movie is not on the highest level. So, but I give him a 4 for this. He's just good. He's just good.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I think Quantum was his lowest point. That had nothing to do with him. It had more to do with just the writing and everything.
Yeah.
But which there's some issues here too. But I still think he stands out. And from what I remember, he really does a really good job in No Time to Die too. No, I think he's the best actor. I mean, I think it's either him or Connery, but I think it's him. If I was to, and I wasn't like speaking of which, talking about suicide, he really did say that. Like that was a quote he said. I wasn't just being flippant about that.
Right.
But yeah, and I bet it is taxing. And he's gotten hurt a bunch. He's had to have surgeries. I mean, I'm sure, and he's not like a young person at this point.
I sit there and I think about these people who are in they're such lucrative franchises, but it's got to be the most like ridiculous work to do a movie that yes, you're getting paid millions and millions of dollars. We're not feeling sorry for you on that one, but at the same time, I totally understand why they want to get out of it and do something like some small indie, with some, it's like,
or go do a play,
bar napkins and cigarettes or some crap like that people always,
Oh my God. I'm sad that movie doesn't exist. This summer, Daniel Craig.
Yes.
Bar napkins and cigarettes.
That's right. He's just sitting at the end of the bar with a beanie on.
Whit Stillman's directing it, like Whit Stillman's back.
Yeah.
Oh
but you can
God.
see why these people who play in Marvel and DC and all that, like they, we kind of take it for granted a lot of times too that they've done like 5 to 7 of these movies. Like we'll see them in their own standalone movies, and then they have to do Avengers stuff, or they have to be like another character in somebody else's standalone movie. And so like, Chris Evans did that Captain America thing. It had to have been like 7 or 8 times or something like that. Because how many times he just shows up in these movies?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's and I don't want to work 17-hour days. Like, I mean, once again, they're getting paid very well. Well, not all of them even, but the stars are. But still, like that, there's definitely enough to it to where I don't think I'd really want to be an actor. I mean, I would love to just pop up in something or something, but like be like a TV shows, especially when they were doing like 26 episodes a season, all that kind of stuff.
And once you make millions of dollars, a lot of these people too. I mean, they realize once you've made that much money, you don't really need to act much again. That's why you see like people
if you're smart with your money.
That's why I feel like you see like people like Daniel Radcliffe. He doesn't really do big budget movies. He just kind of does all these quirky things. Yeah. He's got all that Harry Potter money. His parents didn't steal the money from him, so he's like, he can just do whatever he wants at this point. So I get it.
And that's the thing too. When people make fun of people for taking those big things, but it's like, George Clooney has even said like the reason he took Batman and Robin because his accountant was like, look, man, if you do this, you'll be good for the rest of your life. Like, and then after that, Clooney was doing what he wanted to do. He was still doing big budget movies occasionally, but like he was picking and choosing. He was directing, and absolutely all the Harry Potter people and and then also like I was talking about, like, we were talking about this on one of these episodes, I think, about like I was listening to actors talk that were like on Smallville and stuff like that. And it's like, they talk about like, that was my 20s. Like I was in Vancouver 10 months out of the year filming 15, 16 hours a day, It
just goes to show. I mean, I don't mean to make this
a lot of commitment,
deep and philosophical or anything like that. Not asking you to feel a certain way or whatever, but you need more than just money to be happy.
It's a job. I mean, it's a different, all jobs are different, but anyways, I agree. But I'm gonna give him a 4 also. I don't know how we got off on all that, but there you go.
Yep.
The villain is, and we haven't really talked about Christoph Waltz. He's fine. Like, I don't think Christoph Waltz is Christoph Waltz, so he's perfectly fine. He just has to deliver some of the dumbest dialogue.
Yeah.
My God, I'm the master of your pain.
At this point, we've seen I think he's already won 2 Oscars, right? He's already won for Django.
He's definitely won for. Did he win for Django too?
Yeah, he won 2, and I know
Wow,
it's
that's crazy. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's won for Django at this point, and I think either Inglourious Bastards is. When did that come out? That come out?
Well, that Inglourious Bastards was before Django.
Yeah, 2009. So 2009 and 2012, he's won 2 Oscars. So we know him at this point.
I forgot.
We know him, especially from Inglourious Bastards. We know him as this kind of villain.
Yes.
So he's doing something that we're very familiar with already. He's fine. He's totally fine. I think we're not rating the acting performance, I don't think, here.
Not
I think
really,
we're just
no.
rating the villain himself.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he doesn't do anything for me.
No.
Even, and I like Bautista, but his character doesn't do anything for me.
Oh no, I don't think. I think Bautista's good, but no, that character's terrible.
So I mean, ultimately, I'm giving these guys a 2 as well.
Yeah.
And that's hard to say when you have somebody of this caliber playing a legacy character. You would think this is a slam dunk, but just the story. We've already talked about how the story is a 2 in itself. There's hard to make a villain shine in a story that's a 2. So
exactly,
that's the way it goes.
So yeah, I agree too. Okay, so the one thing we haven't talked about, the Sam Smith song. What do you think of that?
Weirdly, yeah, this is going to be like one of the big highlights. I think the cinematography, the opening sequence, aside from the thing that I talked about, the cinematography and this song, I think this song is great.
Okay.
I'm going to give this a 4. I don't think it's as good as Skyfall. I don't like it as much as the Chris Cornell song, but this is a great song. This is I'm a sucker for a tremendous vocal. I probably said this before, and they usually rank very high for me. And this is a stellar vocal from Sam Smith. So it was almost a 5, I'd say.
Wow. Yeah, this is going to be like me and you on the Duran Duran thing. I do not like this song at all.
Oh, really?
It's just it just doesn't do anything for me. I don't know that it's bad. Like I'm actually going to give it a 3 because I don't think it's a bad song, but it just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. I will say that when I saw this at the theater, I got there early enough to where I was watching like the before they start showing the trailers and stuff. I don't even know what that's called now, but it's like somebody will be interviewing somebody. There'll be a trivia question. So they played this video.
Really?
Yeah, they played like the 3 or 4 minute Sam Smith video. So I watched that video, and then like 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, I'm listening to the song again. I was I did not need to hear this twice.
This reminds me of the time when Lenny Kravitz had American Woman playing.
Yeah.
This was when The Spy Who Shagged Me came out.
Yeah.
I remember. Like first off, that song was like way overplayed on radio in the first place. So I had already heard it 100 million times.
Yeah.
Back in 1999, I was an usher manager at Hollywood 27 in addition to doing my projectionist duties. And so I would go in and help with like cleaning up auditoriums. And Spy Who Shagged Me, you'd go through and clean that while the credits are going on. American Woman! And then the movie would end and our music between our intermission music would have American Woman on it at the same time. So I totally understand if you hear this over and over, it's just one of those type of things where it's like, damn.
And I like Sam Smith. Like I'm not knocking him at all. And I think he does. I actually read some people were talking about that they didn't think his vocals were good for the song, but I disagree with that. I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. It just doesn't hit me beyond like that 2.5 to 3 star.
If there was only one thing that I would detract from it, and I think this is the reason why it's a 4, is that it sounds so much like it's trying to be Skyfall Part 2 a little bit, because it's got that same kind of deal to it. They found the formula that they're going with, and even the Billie Eilish later has that same kind of thing. So. But spoiler alert, I also love the Billie Eilish song. So
I think we've said that. I think we've said that even early when we were talking about the first few episodes. I think we mentioned it. We enjoy that one. Billie Eilish song's great, and that's a weird one too because I'm not a huge Billie Eilish fan. And it's not like I think she's cool. I like that. I get why people enjoy her. Just most of her music just isn't my thing.
Yeah, totally.
So.
Getcha.
But her doing a Bond song, I remember people complaining about that, and I was like, really?
In fact,
I mean, sounds
I
good
can
to me.
I can almost guarantee you that Billie Eilish is like, yep, that makes sense. I'm kind of different, you know.
Yeah.
It's
It's just not a genre of music that, like, you know, hits my fancy. But I get why people like her. Like, she's not someone where I'm like, I don't understand this. You know.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. We hope you will join us again next week when we wrap up at least this season 1, whatever you want to call it, when we're going to talk about No Time to Die, which, as of this recording, is the final Bond film, at least for now. And I'm assuming it's going to be for a few years because they haven't even announced anything.
Oh no,
yet,
they make these things pretty fast, man. They
do.
may announce a guy, and then it's like a movie out in Christmas. You never know.
You might be right.
You might as well. You know what? Make it Lashana Lynch already. Just make it Lashana Lynch. Anyway, go ahead.
No, you're good. Also, before we go, we have social media. You can reach us on Twitter. We are at GoldSpy007. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter. I am at SamLoomis13. You can email us at golddiamonddeath007@gmail.com. And if you like this podcast and other things under the Cinemasins brand, we also have a Patreon you can join at patreon.com/Cinemasins. And if you have a second to leave us a 5-star review at your podcast listening app of choice, we would appreciate it. But anyways, thank you for joining us this week. We hope you'll join us again next week. We will be talking about No Time to Die. Until then, keep the martinis dry and shaken, the Baccarat shoe moving, and the Aston Martin fully gassed. This is Chris Atkinson and Jonathan Watkins signing off, and we will see you next mission.